one time there were men that provided the need.
Received an invitation. I want to acknowledge the pipe ceremony that occurred, the drums that we heard, the prayer this morning, all starting us in a good way and from that point of nationhood. This is my third year. I thought I was here, you had it for 3 years, and I was here for all 3 years, but I was reminded, I guess I missed a year somewhere in there. But it's an honor to come back for my third year, spending time with you. And the previous 2 years that I came, I brought well, he's not my elder, but an elder that I work very close with as the elder Hislop, Elder Harry Bone came with me the first 2 times that I was here. And unfortunately he had slipped and fallen this past late spring and broke his hip. And he's in his mid-70s, so it's taken him a little time to recover, and so this is a little bit too long of a trip for him, so we hope that next year, if we get an invitation wherever it is, and understand it'll move after the 4th year, that he'll be able to join us. I also want to acknowledge Delia, who's looking at me, and I don't know that we've ever had the pleasure of meeting before, but I want to acknowledge you because I too was trained in the Western legal system, Canadian legal system, and have been a lawyer practicing for over 30 years. And when I became a lawyer 30 years ago or so, there were very few lawyers and even fewer Indigenous women lawyers. And so you were a role model for me, even though I didn't know you, but I heard of you. And what I heard was not only that you were a lawyer, but that you were a person that stood strong in her own being as a First Nation person and held those values. And that can be quite challenging when you work in the Canadian legal system because you're up against a system that's very different than our own, whether we're of the Anishinaabe Nation, Cree Nation, or the Dene Nation. It's very different, and so it's very challenging to hold true to your roots and to try and make changes within that Canadian system. So I do want to acknowledge and honor you. Thank you very much, Delia. You're important in my life. And I also want to build upon what Commissioner Culbertson has said in terms of the unity. My connection to your community is through Ralph Paul and his family, and also Sasha Paul, who they relocated, and Ralph Paul was a teacher in my community of Hollow Water. So I think we Anishinaabe'd him a little bit. I like to say him and Sasha, and so it was a big connection that he brought his history and his community and his language to Hollow Water. And I had already left, but he had impacted the community in great ways, and they still talk about him, and they still wonder how he's doing. And so the connection between our respective nations, again, is powerful. So when we talk about nations and when we talk about treaty and implementing treaty and living treaty, it's about those connections and those relationships that we also have amongst ourselves, right? And our common challenge is getting the Canadian and the Western governments to also recognize and honor those nations and those governments. And so this is important. This is what we're doing and what we're witnessing and what we're engaging in. And as Elder Hislop says, what we do in between the times that we gather are important. And we have to work hard to keep what we learn, what we talk about active and build upon those between the times that we gather each and every year, because you've started this now a few years ago and it'll build, right? I'm always of the belief, build it and they will come. We keep doing it and people will come and it'll get bigger and it'll get stronger and the message will travel further and further and people will see it. Not just talk about it, but see it, what can be done and what can be possible in this time, and that we can fill that space that's been taken over by outside and foreign and external governments that rightly belongs to the original peoples of these lands. And so I want to encourage you, and by my words, and physically, if just being here is a sense of support and encouragement, and I too take it back what I learned and speak about the Dene and the Cree and the people of Treaty 10 and what they're doing and what you're doing in your area. Like the Lieutenant Governor said, when you're in the South, sometimes the mind is only in the South, and we forget about the North and the richness and the value of the people in the North. And so we want to, this is a great reminder and a great opportunity to come up and for me to learn as well. I know some, but I don't know all. And you are our teachers. And so I want to be, I look forward to spending the next 2 days listening and learning and hopefully take that with me in the work that I do out there, trying to break down those barriers, trying to break down those walls that prevent us from being who we are as the original peoples of these lands. So Miigwech, thank you very much for the invitation and the opportunity to spend time with you. Miigwech.
Ellie Walker and Prayer Row and the Benny drummer and the Cree drummer. The Massinuisia, Dago and the council and the people here, Treaty 10. When you look at it as a treaty, because the thoughts and the missiles in the Otsum Banash can say it's way back. When a treaty commissioner arrived back in 1906-07, when it's happening there, because I heard the way I heard it in my treaty. Because when a treaty commissioner arrived in, we say it at Bourget, my sister Rosalie mentioned it's one-time ban. And then treaty arrived there, some leaders and the headmen of the Bourget, and they refused to sign it. They refused it. They had all about another year, or they said that before. Ko ya de hon tenisne de da do an has mana kan se ni se ida no hat they got already on this they do nowadays it's technologies we read the technologies. Back in the day with all the elders, they know what the history about. They don't have any the working in computer, but the good reason what do hana tidayachi don't you had that the nothing on say is an unnecessary kuyara nilisne 310 san down nilisne bahu anziston edine setayachi to what who the nisne is an unagreed yan nothing the home iha sne that day quite oral fella. Nora Johnson, the body Johnson, Visitan, West Side on Snubby. We want to put the moon, we got already on over and we died in another only has seen. None yet Arnie's name, a tree, sign of Shazan, Henry's name. You don't need it today as a treaty. Yeah, we all surrounded. We surrounded. If we see it in the real city as a justice. So
they'd hunt and feed those they couldn't hunt for themselves. Out on the land they would cast out their spell. There's a whole bunch of children, they're all gathered round. Place where no laughter will ever be found. They stand in the shadows where there's bright lights around. As you pass by them, they look at the ground. Now come on, all you warriors, I call out your name. There's a whole generation find them, we can show them the way. We'll teach them a language, show them how to pray. We'll teach them a language, show them how to pray.
Last week, I started paddling from here all the way back to Dillon with the students. And I work with the students for a long time. Land-based, whatever you call it, I work with it. Number one, you're sitting there. Did your parents teach you about the cultures? My parents teach me about everything, cultures, how to survive. And I survive my kids. That's how I learned. Whatever I shoot ducks, he was the one who's going to fix it, my boy. He's the one, he has to go fishing to survive, 50 below, it don't matter. So you have to teach everything what your parents teach you. So you have to learn about that. My own sister, boy, he went to university in Saskatoon. Come to be a doctor. The same night, he got killed in Waskesiu Lake. He had to graduate, and they killed him there. They drowned him. See what happened? People, there's a lot of jealousy all over the world besides that. My own cousin, that's what happened. He used to walk from Dillon, from the beach, he used to walk back to Dillon to catch a ride on a plane back to school. I see it with my own eyes. All these things, what you guys are talking about, we'll have to work ourselves. We have to own our lakes, we have to own all these things here. In the bush, not Whiteman. That's the one he's supposed to look after them. In 1900s, there's one guy who's talking about trapping. Resource, he used to run away. Then the people used to hide it in the bush not to kill the beaver. That's the Whitemen, they do that. They make their own rules, not us. What we eat on the table here is our food to eat. I'm not trying to eat fish. I can survive in the bush here. Very easy for me. So we just think about those kind of things. I was a drunkard one time because Whitemen brought that liquor. That's why we're crazy one time. A lot of people are sober now. They got strong mind to use it. He's got lots of knowledge here. One of my sisters is old. He's about 70 years old. He still never drank. I don't think nobody's seen him. He doesn't know what liquor tastes. Your parents and your mom and the elders, please listen to them because they went through those steps. You're talking about priests, you're talking about everything. Priests done to everything. To kids, Richard Johnson School, whatever. Hudson Bay Company, fur buyers. In the bush. Which I think is a mosquito shot line because resources, they don't want him to see him. That's how they went through. That's what my dad used to tell me. I see today we had that meeting, it's been signed. Let's use it. It's been signed there. In old days, My daddy had a check. He used to put X. He doesn't know how to read. X. That's all he knows. So we have to watch that one too. There's a lot of things people knows what's going on all over Reserve, Waterpea Lake. You go to Coal Lake. I go to Coal Lake in 1960.
Ja, dat is in de Holland in het staan. De home, het school, Black Lake, One Lake, Black Brochet dan hele. Coal Lake dan hele. Dan de Holland in het. Dan dan de hele, we zullen dan de hele. De Holland in het, dat is de Haarlem zijn. Wat doe ze al die niet ja? Auto, nous bien. David dit là, la tire à des, une chambre à des, et c'est David dit, on a des yota, a été tué les noms de l'osé, dans les quasi les gros, the number 3 is unheaded, Tanilio, Monteaze. Il dirait, les oreilles. Iat analos ni kani dan khose si tole dan di ta di la ato tu se mo shal ni dan le on san ya te ni da na ata eskeno deske was 17 portages or 19 portages from Patronac to Hawking Lake, Mazoto, et Hotka. C'est Hotka Nation, all on ça. Et Hotel, c'est Ibitanie, seul Hot Piazi. C'est Trane des seul Hot Mia, et c'est Nido, et c'est non Peresne. Then it's true, and not it, Anya. Now 1906, Treaty Holiness a did a yini. Is it clear? A the home as I see did is not. Yeah, Kilo, only the Raleigh Chure, Yaitsa. I did the hotel as a Sydney. Before, idea, huh? 2005, the Nava Nadiga, the Shonana, the Holokina, put the night day, another. What the West Nine? Nidano Tili, you see? I don't see, I don't see. The night only said, for Hahani. Nidab Kazanuk Tili, the Gross on Tili, the pattern of Kade, a ye, hours. You are the mostly time, much in Horace, under the only time, much in Horace. Yazi, when it is near, 310 land and resources are holding near, going off Nelly. Tayote dana, Prati Nia Vitania. Ya Skuli, a few hundred of car, to scan on to Kaza. Mr. King, what? Please? Anyways, I would speak Cree, but I'll just tear it apart. I understand a little bit. But the thing is, I like what I hear. To solidify our position, it's always been that we need to educate not only ourselves, but the others around us. We know some of the reasons why the residential schools were put in place. So there'll be a lot of exploitation on First Nations. But at the same time, it is important to use that education to proceed. And at the same time, something like significance of this kind, it is important. And I thank you again, the elders, the people that came here, for giving me the opportunity, and Marcy Joe, from the bottom of my heart. So.
Out on the land they would cast out their spell. There's a whole bunch of children, they're all gathered round, a place where no laughter will ever be found. They stand in the shadows of this.
General Reagan, you mentioned they were thinking of getting a gathering going for herbal medicines. That's what I do. I'm a herbalist. I like to teach a lot of what I know to the young people. And when I die, all my knowledge dies with me. That's what we should get our leaders get together and get a thing going. Not, instead of going way down south, is where they're gathering there, close to the American border. That's too far. We need one right here. Talk to your people, talk to your leaders. All of you, I'd be interested to go and teach what I know, and maybe I'll learn something. That's what I wanted to mention. Thank you.
Master's degree level at the University of Saskatchewan. We started with quite a few other professors that were teaching us how to do the research, the methodology, you have to contact you, in the 1900s, early 18th century, you had a rough. There was plagues, the Hudson Bay Company and the corporate rule was starting to take over. So the Dene people were starting to be very, very active in ignoring the aims and the designs of the colonial systems that were being brought into our lands. They are, when we sit and we talk about Treaty 10, how can we offer our counter to it? Here, all over, here and there, and not Arsenal, and not the sea, the lot of sun on these are so already. When they carry the industry, it's a lot there. The Naki Tanachu, the SSR Tanahari, it's a lot there. Reason take the horse AR. Learn those who are hard, do it like they are, but later, the CIP, that die, they are. Nun is Hasidai does a cause a ha. Not all the deep, the Yahweh, Treaty 10, not sorry ha. Treaty 10 will be right here as I Treaty Commissioners be at here as I. You need right here, how there is a think tank for share how as a there, after the we'll have to design some thinking systems to undermine all that colonialism that's really infected all of our spirits and all of our thoughts and actions. That's a lot of heavy duty infection that the global community brought into our lives. You know, we're peaceful people. We need to also prove to them that we draw the line because this is our land. It doesn't belong to them. They can say treaty, Lands Management Act, whatever. They're all the fancy white man words that they use on. You know, that here, there's a conduct, then you draw the line. So, you know, bear that in mind, what you guys lost here, the warrior out here. We need to have some of our young people to warrior up and to stand on the front. Thank you.
As an educator, I work with, I work in Treaty 6 territory down south, and a lot of the stuff that we talk about here, I bring down there to teach the kids and talk about with them. And one thing that I've noticed is that when the province, I guess, is in power and is able to pass legislative change that affects us without consultation, that it's like what we say, like application of power is how things happen, right? And like a lot of people were saying about getting the youth involved. That's something that's being, I guess, from my experience, neglected. Because one argument that I have with teachers all the time is that textbook is more important than our elders' voices. That textbook is more important than taking our kids out on the land, and that's how it's graded. That Western way, like what you talked about with Western ways of knowing, those European ways are more important than us actually taking our kids out in the bush. One experience that I had in the fall time was we were fixing ducks, and I looked at my high school teacher and I said, this would be a good opportunity for you to talk about anatomy with these ducks, with your students. And we started plucking the ducks, and he walked in and he said, gross, and he walked out. And I had about 4 boys with me. And right away, 3 boys walked away. And that's powerful. When you have an educator do that, that's powerful because those 3 boys already don't feel that's important. And when we talk about treaties, when we talk about like all the issues that are brought up even in conversation with my father here, some of the stuff that we talk about, like it's a system that was imposed on us. So if you look at the treaty nation-to-nation agreement, that consultation should have been there from the beginning. How do you pass that after generations, right? From the elders now to the ones that are growing up now. How do you teach them that when you take away the technology? When you take away the Wi-Fi? And when you take away the PlayStations and the Xboxes? That's our teachers now. Our kids learn that way faster than they do from sitting in a classroom, faster than they do from being on the land. And that's one thing that we talk about in my circle as with my team. How do we make it so that we keep our kids understanding that our legacy as human beings wasn't here just for for hundreds of years. It was here for thousands of years. Like we just had a conversation this morning about history, right? About a story. And it's powerful for kids to go to a place and see, like I was telling you the story about going to Cypress Hills and going up into the cliffs there and looking at the little pebbles and cemented in the rock. That way up high there's that story, that flood story, right? And showing them that. And these kids carry that story with them. And when we talk about that oral history, that connection to that has to be told like that. You have to show it to them. And I don't know, when I hear about all the stuff that my people are facing and all the importance of it, it's something I don't want to have to be like when I'm an elder. It's something I don't want to have to look at them and say, you know what, we had a good chance. And when I talk with my teachers, I say, you know what, like, yeah, we have trauma. Yeah, we have residential school history. Yeah, we have 60s scoop, all of these things, but we can't re-traumatize our kids by telling them the same stories over and over again and making them that legacy. We can't. We have to acknowledge it, yes, it did happen to us. But we can't make it their history. Like, you know what I mean? Like I went to residential school here, and my mom went to residential school here. The stories were told about what happened here. And I tell the kids that, I said, we can't tell you that. Like,
Good afternoon. I don't have any questions for this tree right now, but I would like to make a request. Like Delia said, we would like to proceed a gathering on east side and Barrellands First Nation with 3 bands. We discussed about it, and we would like to see that coming to our community. And I would like to see all the people here, like I see, and come to our community if it's happening to proceed that gathering back home. And, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
By the federal, by the provincial, by the Queen, by the RCMP, by the Catholic churches, when the residential schools are in place. And I'm tired of seeing that type of control. We have to stand up and fight for what is right. Fight for our beliefs, what we believe in. I believe in traditional values. I believe in respect. My mom and dad sure taught us how to respect traditional values, that type of thing. We have to start teaching our young people that again. We have to go back to the grassroots and start from scratch again. We need to open up our youth's eyes, because right now we're losing a lot of them. We are losing a lot of them. And my heart is sad when I see that. And I'd like to know if there's any way that we can change it around, start teaching our children our traditional values, how to show respect, everything that is good for them. because they're going to turn out to be good people. I know. I tried that, and it works with my children and my grandchildren. They're respectful. They hold everything to the right. And I'd like to see a lot of different people do the same with their children. Please, my relatives, please, show your respect to your children and give them the wisdom that you know. Please, Marcy Jo.